So how about we start with the beginning, with the conception of VCT and how that all came to be?
Well, we were, kind of starts with John Kessel, as many of these things in volleyball sort of do. We were talking about, hey, we need a space where, we can kind of, talk about stuff a little bit better than, just whatever chat rooms or whatever was going on at the time. I don't even remember really what we were using to kind of share information, but I saw about, I think it was 2013. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pete. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that's
7
about
years.
right.
And I was in one of these strength and conditioning Facebook groups, and this was before groups really were becoming big, but you could see the conversations that were happening, and they were pretty cool. And they were sharing files, and they were really connecting. And I thought, man, that's really neat, but you didn't know really where to start it. So I used their template to develop sort of the rules and guidelines. I knew real quick that was important. I figured out real quick that these groups went off the rails if they weren't monitored, and that they didn't have some sort of rules guiding them. So we developed some rules. I basically just copied and pasted what they had written, and off we went. And I, again, realized quickly that I thought this was going to grow, but it grew a lot faster than I thought. So Pete was one of the major contributors at the time. He's a big volley talk guy. I guess I can say that. But that was really the only forum that I knew of kind of like this at the time. But it was anonymous, and that has some good qualities, I think, too. There are times when you can really have a free flow of information when things are anonymous. But I knew Facebook you had to have a face account in order to do it. So you had to own what you were saying. And I think that's becoming really important now, based on the current climate that we're looking at, is that, yes, we have, trolls and things like that, but you had to put a face on it. So Pete was willing to be sort of our first admin. And now I think we have, 13 or 14, Pete? Does that sound right?
We have 14 admins.
14 admins total. So not many are as active as a few of us, but it just sort of developed from there.
Well, it's interesting because 2013 is when I actually started my blog, so we got going right about the same time.
Cool.
And like you, I didn't have much in the way of expectations when I got started. It just kind of blew up. So maybe there was a zeitgeist in 2013 with all non-volleyball content for coaches.
I think so, man.
There used to be, well, I think it's still there, a group, BBS group, called alt.volleyball.sports or something. So I used to go on there all the time. John Kessel used to go on there just kind of under the radar. And there are some really good people, really knowledgeable people. And through Volley Talk, I met some of them, and they're like, yeah, I remember, and this was at the very beginning of the internet. So it was just emails. Well, you post on these BBSs and you respond to it. So that was really my first exposure to this kind of thing. But it was not very conducive because it was, first of all, I had to call up on my modem. And, and you kept dropping out, and it wasn't real time and all of that stuff. So I stopped checking it. And then I saw this thing. I got on Facebook, and I don't even remember how I stumbled onto VCT. It just happened, and I got in, and I started posting, and I get this strange email from this guy named Swenty, and next thing I know, I'm here. And
I should note, repping the brand with the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Brian, I don't know what your excuse is.
I'm wearing my Vilsack.
You're okay.
Representing my home court here. My Falcons.
So how long did it take to get, say, the first 1,000 members?
I'd have to dig back through the archive. It was pretty quick. A few months. Yeah. I mean, we got to, I think it was 5,000 within like 2 years, something like that. It grew really rapidly. I'd have to go back through and kind of look at some of the numbers and stuff. But and they do actually have analytics, within Facebook groups. Mm-hmm. You may know that, but they're different than the page analytics, but they're still pretty cool. And they show engagements and things like that. We're almost at 22,000 now. You just mentioned, so that's pretty cool. But I don't know. It was quick, but I think we got to 10,000 really quick. And then it just has sort of gradually climbed. I mean, you sort of reach a peak in and it is social media like anything. And some of the best coaches who maybe we want to be here, they may be lurking, but they're really not maybe participating as much, sort of thing. But because it is not anonymous, but there are pretty good numbers.
Well, that's a question for me is, do you guys have any sort of sense of what fraction of the membership you would call active?
Yeah, well, I can pull up my analytics even right here and tell you. So let's see. They call them engagement, right? And so the last 28 days, last 60 days, let's see, pull up here. Let's see, we've had in the last 28 days, 25,000 posts, comments, and reactions out of 22,000 total members. There are what considered 92 top contributors. That's pretty good. And then they have analytics for mostly engagement and different things like that, membership joining, that sort of thing. But it's pretty cool. And you can do it all on your phone even, which is pretty neat.
Right.
But yeah, but 25,000 is pretty good in a month.
Yeah,
and again,
that's not too bad.
And the key, I think, with groups that are so cool is that they're like people, and they can be as big as you want it to be. You see maybe public volleyball groups that have over 100,000, but they get spammed and they become these sort of, we're all in groups that become just a hot mess. So it was really important to us to keep the engagement there, make it quality engagement, make it a place that was, safe for people to interact, that wasn't going to get spammed, that did have a lot of rules that we all followed. And again, as a history teacher, I sort of love the salons in Paris in the 1700s. If you're familiar with that sort of meeting space where they would all get together and drink coffee and debate. And that's really what I wanted this to be, a place where you could go do that. And you may not agree with everybody, but that we were able to monitor, behavior, which I think Facebook groups allows you to do pretty well. And they're really engaged about making it better and better. Now, there's people, this is their full-time job, is to figure out how to make these groups, obviously, and keep people on Facebook.
Sure. You talked about at the beginning, having a set of rules that you picked up from other groups. Has that had to be modified at all over the years?
Oh yeah, all the time. I looked at the ones we have now. They need to be reworded and rewritten a little bit, and because it's cool though. What you can do is you can add these different layers, and I think one of the initial things groups was having trouble with is people weren't reading the rules. So now when you join a group, depending on when they do the release of the update, you make the people read the rules. You can have them pair it back to you. What are the important ones? You have multiple questions. You can, if people don't answer the questions, you can immediately boot them. There's all sorts of ways to sort of prevent membership. But yeah, they always need tweaking as we figure this stuff out.
It's, we're just, really, we're just making this stuff up as we're going along. Right?
Exactly.
Nobody's really done it exactly the same way. I'm sure there are other sports type of Facebook groups that, have their own rules and they probably have the same problems that we have. They probably have the same rewards that we have. So we're constantly discussing. I guess we can out ourselves.
Yeah, sure.
But we have a VCT administrators group. That's only the administrators, and we debate and we sometimes we yell at each other, and we do a lot of that just to get ourselves trying to figure out what to do with some of these issues that come up.
And we do try to rule by consensus. It's not, or if someone has a real strong objection to something, we might look at that a little closer. But none of us rule an iron fist. This only grew because there's so many cool people with their hands in it. BJ is one, Pete, and John Kessel himself, and many others that are in there all the time, generating conversation. And they monitor this stuff too, because you can't keep everything going if it's 2:00 in the morning here. It's prime time in the States where most of our members are. So you have to have people that are willing to do that. And we're not always going to agree on everything, but we try to go by consensus for the most part.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that I didn't kind of lay out some of the ground rules for these conversations for our attendees. For those who are not watching on Facebook, those who are actually in Zoom, feel free to shoot in questions anytime you like. Best if you use the question and answer function. That's a little bit easier for us to monitor more directly. Those of you on Facebook, you can try. I don't know how much attention we're necessarily paying to what might pop up there. So you're taking your chances.
Yeah, I'm actually. I pulled up the feed here next to me, so I have it live too now.
All right. So Brian might catch it if you post a question.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it is interesting to periodically see something that gets posted by one of the admins. I think Mandy did this recently. Whereas like if I see any more of these posts, I'm just deleting them.
We call him the Hammer. He's our we all the like Thor gifs and stuff in the background. He is our enforcer.
So,
good or bad.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you have somebody going with a broadsword, you're not sure who's going to get hit.
So I have to imagine that, that's not even imagination. It's obvious. You got 20,000 people who are all going to be coming at things from a different perspective. And you obviously try to screen them as much as you can to make sure that they're obviously coaches involved in coaching and not just random schmoes coming in off the street to cause trouble or whatever, or possibly try to spy on their favorite coach that they want to later harass or do something with.
So there is, when you ask to be let in, there are 3 questions. They only let us ask 3 questions. So when we look at the request, we generally, my MO is, if you don't ask questions, you're not getting it. If you don't answer the questions, you don't get in. And initially it was, we didn't discover this initially. We were just looking at people and we're having to go into their Facebook profiles, look at if there's any way, shape, or form that volleyball is in their Facebook.
Yeah.
And then we look at how involved they are and so on and so forth. There's a hard and fast rule that we don't let parents in, for club volleyball. But then we have people who are parents and they're coaches. So that's something that we had to monitor a lot, because there are a lot of people who are asking questions or posting stuff as parents more than coaches.
Asking for a friend, these type of questions.
Yes, yeah. So we're looking at this going, really? Come on. And there are people who keep posting videos of their kid, hoping to catch some college coach's attention.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But having those questions asked that was the greatest day in the world. I thought that was
because
really
we'd have to go deep, like Pete said, deep dive into their profile. We're trying to look for anything that says volleyball, and that was kind of cool actually too, about getting people from Africa and from foreign countries. Maybe look a little closer, and we did take a risk on some of those coaches because you can't really see. And we've had some really cool engagements with some of those folks. Where one of our admins took a trip to Zimbabwe. Based on this Facebook group. So
Emily decided, she got in touch with this guy. This guy put videos up of his kids playing in dirt, right? With a couple of tree trunks. And Emily thought, that's really cool. So she's got wanderlust. So she went and she gave coaching clinics. She worked with the kids, and she brought equipment. That was awesome,
amazing.
Because she went on VCT and said, "Hey, I'm going to be going to Africa. These guys need these things. Could you send them to me, and I'll ship them. I'll bring them over with me." And holy crap, the amount of stuff that she got is amazing. Awesome. Yeah.
And they're still friends.
Right.
It's really cool.
Yeah. I can totally see that happening. It does seem to work that way. So then you go do something you haven't experienced, and you don't just let it go. It's part of you forever.
Yep.
Well, and that's it. We're having our challenges now with social media, like anything. But you saw Pete's eyes light up and my eyes light up. I mean, we really try to focus on a lot of the positive things, because we do see the underbelly, I guess, of social media, which I'm sure you'll get to. We'll get to in this conversation. But there have been so many really cool, positive moments, and some of the most positive moments I think we're seeing right now. hard moments, but really, stuff I'm most proud of.
Well, and that actually brings up a good kind of topic is on the topic of topics. What are the things in a positive way? We could talk about the negative stuff in a little bit. What are the things in the positive way that seem to get people most engaged in conversations?
Well, it's usually controversy gets people fired up. Anything we have our wrist snap jokes, of course, that we continuously make. The motor learning principles that people are hard to like anything. Anything that some people see as black and white. You're going to get people trying to convince the other party that their way is the right way. But we do get a lot of really positive interaction when people post honest video about, hey, can you help me assess this athlete? What do you think is going wrong? What do you think I should do? What's a drill that might help? Anything video connected generally creates a lot of really positive interactions.
Yeah, and that's a Facebook thing, and just in general, probably a social media thing in general, is that video almost always gets more engagement than anything that's just text. So for all of you out there, if you want people to pay attention to stuff you post, put a video with it. Much more likely.
Well, and the ones that are shot with their own phones. Yeah, we have some, but like even ones that are shot with their own phones are really good. Not like inspirational videos necessarily or these set of things, but if you have the permission of the athlete, there's all these kind of concerns we're worried about. But like the ones that, especially serving videos, those seem to really bring out a lot of the sort of, and you can take it with a grain of salt like anything. Everybody has their way, but you see people who post these things that generally don't know what's wrong. And I've read, great stuff, paragraphs of like, wow, those are good, really good tips, or, this is as much a learning experience for us, I think, as anybody.
So we get a lot of coaches that are not as experienced, right? So some of them are, high school kids or college kids. This is their first coaching job. And they ask some very basic fundamental questions. And that's actually one of the problems that we had to work through, is because we have a lot of high-level coaches. And they're just like, if I see another post about how to serve, I'm going to quit this group, because they've been there. But we serve that audience. These are the people that we really want to pull in. These are the people that we want to educate, right? So we created some rules about, okay, so give us the name, give us the age group that you're working with, give us the level, and basically tell us everything there is to know that about the kid. And then that's how we can help you. The worst post is go, right? And you're going, what? Go what? Go where? Right? And I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's you bring up it's a problem with all these online forums and discussion groups is you get to a point where a lot of the membership is experienced, but you have a constant influx of new people who are looking for information and looking to learn and asking really basic questions. And the experienced people are beyond the point where they want to talk about that stuff anymore.
Correct.
They're thinking about things at their level. And yet you always have a few that want to be helpful and want to be useful and will answer questions all day long. I was actually in that role in a forum, not in volleyball, but in something else, where the administrators actually brought me in to be that person because it was a forum that was intended to be for new people. Right. You can't just have a bunch of new people answering each other's questions because who knows what kind of information is going to start getting shared at that point. That can get just completely ridiculous. So I can totally see. Yeah, that'd be an issue.
This is why we created the Google Drive. And go, Brian.
Yeah, right. Well, Clayton Lucas just had a nice comment. If you know Clayton, he's one of the voices of the FIB and covers a lot of the matches and things. And he said, VCT is like the Olympic Games. Not everyone watching knows the rules. So sometimes we're there to help and explain. That's true. How many when you tune in, we all remember that point when we were new. Hopefully that's, you have some empathy still and you're not an old curmudgeon, and when you can feel that question when someone's 22, 23, vulnerable, they're asking this question that's very basic, but the fact that they came and joined, they found this group, that's what the conversations with John Kessel, he's an amazing teacher. And, I'm a teacher, that's my profession as well, and you really can't ever disconnect yourself from what it was like to not know anything, and that moment you were vulnerable with that vulnerable question and how people treated you when you put yourself out there, that's important to me. And sometimes because, people aren't face to face and social media, they cross that line of treating people poorly, and that disappoints me, of course. And if it gets to a real bad point, of course, we delete comments. We used to just kick people out, but now actually Facebook has given you a lot of cool tools where you can mute people for a certain period of time. You can, give them a day to cool off, that kind of thing, where you're not actually booting them immediately, because a lot of people, they cross the line like anything, and this gives us that opportunity to do that. But I just personally want to never forget what it's like to not know something, and just asking those questions of people who are obviously more experienced than you and getting an answer from a John Kessel, or from an Olympian who's commenting on this 23-year-old's, serving question. And this guy who played in the Olympics is entertaining that, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's why we started the Google Drive, since Brian ignored my perfect set.
That was a great setup, but I figured out that you had it. You hit it out of the
I'm
park.
like,
Come on.
dude, that was sweet. Why didn't you kill it?
That's
but
true, yeah.
but we started the Google Drive. We collected some of the, people ask about tryout drills. People ask about passing drills. All these different drills. People asked about the bearing tournament. How do you run that? People ask about stats, and Dan Mickle, gave us his quick stat sheet. That's in there. Katie Charles had a lot of the stuff that she got from Larry Bach at Juniata on motivation, on being resilient. All of that stuff is in there. And that's one of the first things that we posted on our pinned announcement, that, here's the Google Drive. And, initially, as we put that drive up, people were asking questions, and we would just go look at the Google Drive and see if you can find what you wanted there. And the response was really pretty good. People were going, holy cow, I didn't even realize this was here. So, but it's still kind of hidden. It's still, I doubt most of the people that ask questions or even answer questions know that it's there, but it's there.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that you've got with Facebook and with social media in general is that there's a currency bias to the content. They always want to show you the newest stuff. So anything that's pinned, it's not going to show up in somebody's newsfeed. You actually have to go into the group and look for it.
Right, yeah.
And let's face it, there's a lot of, inherent laziness in us. We want the quick solution.
We want that instant gratification of, here, I have a question, where's my answer?
Yeah. Real quick shout out for Clayton. He was, I think, on the second one of these coaching conversations I ever did, where he talked about his experience as a broadcaster and being involved in the entertainment, so to speak, side of volleyball. So for those of you interested in that, definitely check it out. It was a good conversation with him and Mark Lebedew.
Great guy.
Right,
and a proper coach in his own right.
There you go. And his son plays.
Oh, his son plays quite a bit.
He's a volley dad also.
Yeah.
All right, let's kind of get back to discussion topics, and let's maybe talk a little bit about the darker side of where some of these conversations can go and what can happen. You kind of brought up people just getting into ad hominem attacks and really personal and having exchanges that have nothing to do with the topic. So why don't you guys share a little bit in terms of what tends to get a moderation influence?
Well, as Pete said before, we make this up as you go along, and sometimes you don't have a whole lot of definitions, but you know it when you see it, And so when people put up these comments and when they cross the line, that's a clear line. That's why there's so many of us that are watching these posts. I can't watch them all. Nobody can. The report button is a nice one when people report a comment that allows us to review either a post or an individual comment. And like I said, we used to just boot them. Like it was the hammer would come out and they were gone. And I think people got, I got booted from one of my world history groups one time, and that wasn't even a bad thing. It was just, I guess I posted an article and I didn't explain how I was going to use it enough, so they kicked me out for that because I'd violated a rule, and I was lost without that. Like I was like, oh my God, where's my group? Like I have all these files and things I got to access. I got to teach my class, and I rely on this. So I think it's almost like being voted off the island when you get booted out of one of these groups. It's very socially, I don't know. It can be unnerving. I think when you I'm not saying people are flat earthers, and maybe I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think when people go really off the rails, they need to be drawn back in, not cut off completely. And I just, that's why I like the muting option. That allows people to cool off a little bit. So we started using that a little more. I know that was one of the questions here. And we do warn people sometimes within the post, hey, watch it. This is getting out of hand, just openly. We try to message people about what's going on. Hey, if you posted this is why we deleted it. Okay, who's going to tell this guy he can't post this stuff, even though it's kind of cool? And again, some of it's, draws a fine line, right? We say people can't post things, but yet, we agreed, or I agreed, kind of to give you that little thread, and that was a good compromise, I think, where you can post your stuff on the thread, and people are interested, and we can push people towards that. Hey, make sure you like this stuff or comment on it so you get notifications. Whereas people aren't posting these constant, deals. I think that's where we get some of the violations of the rules. But I think the ability to just treat people like human beings. Hey man, your comment was a level line. We've had people apologize, and then they come back and say, yeah, I was out of line. We've had to kick people out and block them because if they crossed a really bad line where they called somebody a slur or something like that. And we might be open to an appeal if they message us later. You have that ability once you're blocked. If they, after a week or two, decided to do that themselves, we might entertain that. But it's not easy, and but it really is constant monitoring. And most people are pretty civil. But when you disagree, especially when you can't see someone face to face, people tend to say things, and I've done it. I'm guilty of it. You say things in a flippant way that you would never say to someone's face. So we just all have to be careful and remind ourselves of that. What do you think, Pete?
What?
What do you think?
I'm trying to get the Facebook feed. Sorry. Yeah, I think people are. It's kind of amazing to me that I'm on Volley Talk, and Volley Talk people are just poisonous on Volley Talk because they've got that anonymity. But with this group, I'm sometimes really shocked at how much vitriol flows within this group. I mean, at the very beginning, we had people just losing patience with the younger coaches, and you get a lot of well, if you don't know this, you're worthless type of comments, and we made a couple of postings on that. We try to advise people, and there's one posting now up on that's pinned that's kind of like, okay, so don't write posts that don't ask for help if you don't give them a lot of data or a lot of information about what you're asking about. And then a reminder to the more experienced coaches, it's okay, remember when you were a young, horrible coach, remember when you needed help and somebody helped you, so please do that. And I think a lot of it has to do with people jumping to conclusions. They read a question and it's, well, this is what I think they're saying, which is not what they're saying. so it's goes right back down to the communication part of it. It's different. Even with Zoom, we're able to, I'm able to read John's facial expression. I'm able to read Brian's expression. You don't get that with Facebook. You're trying to depend on how articulate you can come off on a keyboard. And some people are more and some people are less. And there's a lot of creativity that needs to go on as trying to figure out what the hell these people are trying to say to me. Some people don't have any problems telling you exactly how they feel about you.
Right.
And those are the people that we kind of have to police. And to Brian's point, it was very, very surprising to me that some of these people who are so belligerent in the group come back and go, yeah, I'm sorry, I was over the line. I didn't even realize it. And I'm just like, I was ready to battle. But
there's a couple of parts to that. One is some people don't fully read what gets posted. So they answer a question that never got asked.
Yep.
And you're like, well, wait a minute, go back to the beginning.
and that's responsible for some of the longest threads in VCT, because it's people go off on a tangent and the original posters try to answer to that, and I'm looking at this going, dude, he didn't answer your question. Why are you answering to this?
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, we've all posted questions that maybe we didn't provide enough information on. So we got weird responses and be like, oh, yeah, I should have thought of that. Yeah. But then there's the other times where you did put the information there and you get answers. Like I've mentioned a couple of times in VCT doing this extension of Volleyball Coaching Wizards where the focus is on women. It's about, it's women being interviewed by women about issues that are not all and entirely about being a woman coach, but certainly including conversations about being a woman coach. So at one point I posted a question, there are not a lot of female coaches outside the U.S., especially when you get to the higher levels of the sport. Yep. So I threw the question out there because there's a good international contingent on VCT. Mm-hmm. Make some recommendations. Are there any women coaches out there that you would recommend that we talk to? And I think I had at least two, if not three people mentioned Ann Schilling, who's a high school coach in Alabama. I'm going, and you go back and you read your initial question going, did I not say international? Did I miss something here entirely?
Yeah.
She's a perfectly good recommendation, but you're not answering what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you mentioned the other side of it is misinterpretation or making assumptions, either about the scenario or about the person that you're exchanging with. Mm-hmm. Like, do you know something about this person that the rest of us don't know that's coming out in this conversation? Or did you just jump to the conclusion based on your own personal perspectives and biases and whatever you've got going on?
Well, and it's amazing how much you can tell someone's biases just in their responses lately. Even if it's about motor learning, I can almost tell where their leanings are in terms of other issues that might be, non-volleyball related. The more you see these questions, the more you get to know the sort of the frequent flyers. We also get in our analytics who the top contributors are, and it's who the names you would recognize certainly. And they're not always people who post original answers. Like one of the top contributors is someone who posts 0 questions.
And
so it's like they got a lot of answers, but it's as Socrates says, I need more questions. So that's part of it too. That that some people are lurking, some people are watching, some people are misinterpreting questions, some people are, I don't know. It is what it is. I still think the good outweighs the bad overall, which is why I think I continue to stick with this, because there are times, even 3 weeks ago, I was like, I don't know if I can take it right now. Just in terms of social media in general, all the things that have been going on, the shootings and the the killings and the whole thing, just what our political climate is right now. And I can segue into a good conversation, I think, here too, when it comes to what our original intent was and maybe where we're going, but that's all part of it, and I don't know, I guess we can bring that up a little bit if you don't mind, but
no, go ahead.
The thing we're dealing with now, and it's a struggle, but a good struggle, I think, is how we're bringing in, politics and, race relations, the things that people don't want to discuss, that people might be wanting to kind of push under the table a little bit. We've sort of pushed to the forefront, and I've had people message me saying they couldn't take VCT anymore, and they left because they couldn't take some of the vitriol that Pete was talking about. We were kind of letting fly a little bit in some of these conversations, But I think just in general, what is our purpose here? We're talking about coaching education and who we want to be, not just as coaches and teachers, but as people who are influencing other people. So we're having difficult conversations that we feel that we need to have. And I can tell in VCT, a lot of people don't like that. I think there are a larger number that do, but there are quite a number of people that are turned off right now because this is not volleyball related stuff, right? They want to debate wrist snap and motor learning and other things. I didn't come here to discuss what my role is on for an African American female or male or whatever, a person of color or whatever it is, right? And I think it's a conversation that I really think is necessary. I know Pete does for sure, and maybe if you know us personally, you may know some of our personal political leanings a little bit, but it goes beyond that. It's just gotten bigger than that. And I think a historian that we follow was sort of talking about why is this time different right now? These things have been going on forever. I read a great article about from the 68 Olympics where where the two first and third place gold and bronze medalists are raising their fists, and got huge backlash for that. This is 52 years ago, right? And so what is different about this moment? I think it was said that we can see ourselves in what is happening, and I think that's really what sort of change is about. And so when we're having this conversation in VCT, I've now, and I've always, and I coach many kids of color. Our school is probably about 50-50 when it comes to our breakdown. 43% of kids in the military, or 43% rather, of service members are people of color in the U.S. military. So and the U.S. Army, which is where I serve, is a very diverse population. So I've been coaching these kind of people for a long, long time, but I haven't grown as much as I have in the last 3 years because I needed to. I needed to look at their perspectives a lot differently. So when I read some of the coaches who right now are pouring themselves out and how they feel and what their perceptions are, those are incredibly valuable and important to me to share with other people. And I hope people are reading those things. And a lot of people have been throwing out their vitriol, obviously from their perspective, but it has really taught me how important it is to put yourself in someone else's shoes and be more empathetic.
So Brian and I mean, we shot this post back and forth a couple of times, and I think it's pinned now at the top. And it talks about, we try to make it so that people, coaches of color and, people who coach minority-dominated teams can get on there and go, here's our problem with volleyball. Here's what's going on with regard to racism and prejudice within volleyball. And Brian and I, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we more or less agree that, it's a integrated, we are integrated people, right? We're not just volleyball people. We're not just a teacher or an engineer. We are very complex, complicated people. And so is volleyball. Everything, even though people just want to do volleyball is just one part of the circle of influence. So we felt like everything that's been going on is important to us, and it's important to how it affects volleyball. And so we made this post about, how can we make it better? How can we, what are you seeing as the problem? What are we not seeing? We try to frame it as a positive frame of mind so that people could, put down solutions. And I will tell you that I was really pretty shocked at how much outpouring we had. We had coaches of color who got on and said, you guys, this is great. Here's my experience, and it's bare bone, very raw, very emotional experiences about the things that they've gone through. And I've kind of left it alone. And then all of a sudden, similar kind of post starts popping up. Today there's one from a guy who I'm sitting there reading this going, holy crap. This is, and he started it off with, well, this may get me kicked off of this forum,
yeah.
but I need to get this out, right? And it kind of shows the humanity. We have 22,000 humans as part of this group, and there's concerns, and all of it doesn't have to do with volleyball, but it does have to do with volleyball. Right. So it has to do with who we are as human beings. So that's what's so cool about this group is, I've been involved since, for 7 years, and I keep telling myself, why do I keep coming back and doing this administrator thing? It's moments like that kind of, reinforces my hope in people. And they're international people, and there's, people from all over the country, and it's those little moments that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah. We just, I was on the Weekly Buzz with Master Coaches a short while ago, and we had Sharon Clark from the ABCA, who's the current president.
Yep.
And she spoke, part of what we were talking about was COVID-19 and what's going on, because obviously that's a big consideration for anybody who's going to have or is thinking they might have a season coming up in the fall, and what schedules are going to look like and all that. But she also spoke to what's happening with Black Lives Matter and everything that's related to that. And she's a black woman with a black husband and a black son who talked specifically in the conversation about how she kind of like overlays their faces on the victims anytime the news comes out. So there's this visceral sort of feeling for her as a mother and a husband. And as you were kind of talking, Pete, I was thinking about, the empathy side of things and the vulnerability. And for those who haven't watched Brene Brown's presentation that's available on Netflix, or you can see her on TED Talk or whatever, absolutely go see that. Part of what we do as coaches is working to understand the athletes that play for us, to be able to engage with them, to be able to motivate them, to be able to communicate with them, and all of that. So we inherently are in a position of having to be empathetic with their situations. So we should be practicing that in an online discussion, in a forum, in a Facebook group, wherever wherever people are coming together to discuss ideas, and not just being these rigid boxes of this is me and that's it. I don't need to worry about anybody else.
So we see a lot of younger coaches coming in, and they coach younger kids, and you see them get in and they talk about how they love their teams, how they're such great kids, and so on. And what we're doing with these discussions about Black Lives Matter is an extension of how much we love our kids, right? So why not? If you truly love your team, love the people that they are more than the players, if you love the human beings that you're trying to teach and educate, then yeah, all of this stuff matters. All of this stuff is a part of what makes you a coach. So some people on VCT are like, well, you're stretching it too much. You're drawing, you're projecting too much. But I really couldn't give a damn.
Good. The other thing I would say is, I on one level, I can understand people who want their volleyball conversation, their Facebook group, to whatever, to be an escape from the rest of their lives. I get that. The other thing I would toss out there is you don't have to read every thread. You certainly don't have to respond to every thread.
Yes. Bingo.
You're probably better off not doing that, as a matter of fact, for your own sanity, because there's stuff that you don't need to get engaged with.
Yeah.
And I know people who are viscerally angered by the fact that VCT is bringing some of these things up. I can see it in some of my friends' voices who are, have certain political opinions. That's hard as well, because I do get that. But it's like, this conversation matters, a great deal. And maybe more to me than other people, I don't know. I've tried to develop that empathy. If my team is mixed, I count my kids up every year. It's about 50% people of color. Many people don't coach in those sort of environments. Their kids don't go to those sort of schools. They have they post their pictures of their teams, and every kid looks exactly the same as the next one, and that's fine, and I get it, but that's the conversation we need to have too, about opening up our sport more. Our sport is becoming, and sort of gymnastics of team sports, where if you don't have the money, you're not going to compete. So we want to take some of those things head on, and what can we do about it? And can we have honest conversations about accessibility and why people feel the way they feel? And maybe we can do something about it. And maybe one of these conversations that people have in here will inspire somebody to, do more.
Right. All right. Not to necessarily take things away from, well, I don't know how to transition this. So we'll go away from the political social commentary to something that comes up sometimes in these groups, and you've certainly seen conversations about it within VCT, inside conversations related to VCT, as it comes up with any group, is the idea that there becomes an orthodoxy within the group, and that anybody who disagrees with that orthodoxy gets hammered, for lack of a better word. Here comes Thor. Manzi. So any dissenting views get shouted down, and not allowing for a more diverse sharing of ideas.
You want to go?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Like I said, I definitely am a more to learning guy in terms of what I feel and believe, and I'm guilty of not being as open-minded as I should be, I guess. But that's something I'm working on too. When we get into these groups, we have these conversations. But part of it is when these things are said, do all of us have some accepted things, right? Where we believe there are a certain number of planets. We believe that the Earth is round. If we can all agree on those things, but if someone comes in and tells me that the Earth is flat, that's hard, to deal with. Now, if someone talks about the molecular composition of Saturn or something, well, maybe we can discuss that a little bit. I don't know much about that. Let's talk about it. So I think some of those things seem like they're so ingrained already that they almost are laws, but maybe they're not, right? And we have to have that shred of doubt that I think is okay to be skeptical, but yet at some point we have to accept some things. So I think that's where we get a little bit into being a little too dogmatic maybe in some things. And so, do we want to present all ideas as if everything is a 50-50 choice? I don't know if that's the right answer either. There's, we have a lot of really smart people in our group, and when consensus begins to go a certain way, I think that matters. Now, do we not listen to that small shred of people that might have an answer? Sure, but I don't know. It's tough to weigh in terms of how that discussion comes out. I don't know. What do you think, Pete? We as passionate people, we have a tendency to become dualist. So in the study of philosophy, you have a monism, which is belief in one thing, or
a dualism, which is you believe in two things, one versus the other. So in our society right now, it's pretty much a dualistic society. But what we are based on is pluralism, right? So we have many different beliefs, okay? But those beliefs are relatively worthless unless we have some facts behind it, okay? And I'm an engineer. I deal with certain amount of unknowns, but if you put in too many unknowns, I kind of freak out. I don't like it, right? And I had to change that mindset. So now I'm looking at it as, you could do many things. You could train many different ways. And Vern Gambetta, who I kind of worship right now, he says he keeps saying this. It's like, are you doing what's best for your kids, or are you doing what's best for your beliefs? I think most coaches are doing things because this is what I believe. This is the thing I cling on to because this is all I got, right? And he says, if you're not doing the best thing for your kid, then you're not really coaching. I'm putting words in his mouth. But essentially, you decide on how you train. You decide on what the right techniques are. You decide on the right tactics, the right lineups, and all this stuff. Are you doing this because you want what's best for your kid, or are you doing this because you want what's best for your ego? Right? I think there's a lot of that in this dichotomy that we've imposed on coaching, and that's, I think, the crux of the argument. I mean, I've been working on writing some things on that issue. So, but that's what it's coming out of my brain because I've been thinking about it. But that's the deal, right? This kid is not a block kid or a random kid. This kid is somewhere in the middle, and you have to figure out how to train that kid based upon what you know. But you can't just stick with one or the other because it's not going to be effective.
Right. That we're kind of getting close to the hour here. Not that we can't go a little bit longer if we want to, but a lot of this brings up the idea for me that, in part by force, because of the situation we're in, we're seeing new methods of communicating and sharing and teaching and learning and all this. Zoom obviously being one that's really jumped to the fore. What sort of patterns have you guys seen in the discourse on VCT about what people have been talking about, or how people approach things, or the kind of the ancillary materials around what people are doing, and where do you think things are kind of headed?
Oh boy!
Nice one, John.
Where are they headed? Well, Clayton Lucas had a good idea. He's interacting here, which is nice. He said we should maybe post a question on VCT where you have a video question and only video responses are permitted. That's kind of maybe a neat way to do it. I think the more we can look and see each other in your eyes, there's no substitute for being with a person.
Correct.
The relationships that I have developed through VCT and my other volleyball, interests, when I go to convention and I get to, hug those people and look in their eyes and have a beverage with them. I mean, there's nothing like that, So I think we're always trying to get as close to that as we can. How can we get so close to being there? And I think these are good, ways of doing things. Having more open panel discussions like this, where maybe people are, not just experts, but we're gathering around in a panel and having a chat, and people are interacting and they're posting their questions, and you can answer. The more connection we can get with people, the better it's going to be. And I think Facebook does a good job of that and developing that. I mean, it's we'll see how it goes. They just added a group feature within your or like a room feature within your groups, so you can click on it and have your own sort of video rooms, like a Google Grid or Zoom grids. So they're doing those things to create more connectivity. So I think that's where it's going, and they keep on adding little, the little interactions at the bottom with, now there's a care emoji and these sort of things where, and the use of emojis, of course, does help interactions. I have the same thing with kids in class, when they're writing their discussion questions on a computer and they're not talking to each other, how their words are construed are very different, So I think it's getting better in terms of our communication abilities, but understanding too the limitations of this medium. It is not being there. It's maybe the closest thing we can get to these interactions, and I don't know. I think it's going to get better, but I think we all have to also develop a pretty tough skin with some of this stuff. And what we allow through is going to be important. The better I get at listening and being more empathetic, the better I get at learning. So I've learned just as much about anything, I guess, through this group as maybe the people in it. It's been a really cool journey for me. So even if there was nobody else in it, I got to meet Pete and all these other cool people, So
Gee, thank you.
it's pretty cool.
So there people who are bad communicators, this is like hitting driver. Being online, even on Zoom, whatever. This is like hitting driver. If you suck at communicating, you're not going to be good at communicating on Zoom, right? So what this does to good communicators, it makes them try a little harder because they realize that they're not able to get their point across as well because they're not face-to-face. So I love panels. I think the AVCA had I think I was at the AVCA convention the first time they had a super panel, and it was fabulous. They had, I forget who they had, but it was like 4 big guns out there, and they were just talking, just chatting amongst themselves. I think Kelly Sheffield of Wisconsin was the moderator, and he got out there and he did a fabulous job. Little plug for Kelly. You did a fabulous job of asking all the right questions and stuff like that. One year, this is right after UCLA won it, and they had Mike Seeley on the super panel. Not the year they won it, but the year after. And he had some challenges that year, the year after he won the championship, and the guy was in tears. The guy was nearly in tears. He was, because he was talking, he was putting himself out there, and those are kind of things that I really want to go see. I don't want to go, even though some of these sessions are great. You sit for an hour and you listen to people, but the best part of it is the Q&A, because it forces the presenter to think on their feet, and the coffee breaks, where you get to see people and where you get to talk about it, where you actually get to talk to the presenters. Those sessions are the ones that, this is where the real communication comes from. And I think this medium that we have right now, we could do that. You could break out into separate rooms, and you could do this. It's just a matter of people wanting to do it and learning how to do it. And, I'm trying to learn how to do online teaching. Good, because I'm teaching this coming fall, and they told me, well, we don't know if it's going to be online or not, so you need to be prepared for both. So I'm learning all these tools and stuff. I'm not really good with them, but it's opening up a lot of different areas of communications. So yeah. I think this group could grow that way, given the kind of tools that we're given.
Yeah. I was actually it was Seattle when Seeley was in that panel. It was what how we win or why we win sort of thing. Yeah.
It was very good.
Yeah. And I agree with you both. One of the reasons I went with this format with the conversation idea was because I wanted these just coaches talking with each other, like we do when we have the opportunity to run into each other at a tournament or at a convention or a clinic or wherever we might happen to meet up, because we were missing all that stuff since we couldn't go out. Our teams weren't going to tournaments. We couldn't go to do anything. So all those, professional or whatever you want to call them, exchanges were gone. And it's funny because I was just thinking about the vast majority of the conversations I've done have been just conversational, but there've been, I think, maybe 3 or 4 that were more presentation oriented. One of them was because it was a language. It was done mainly in Spanish and then translated. 2 of the other ones were by Manzi
Oh, jeez.
and Dan Mickle. They were both good. No, I won't take that away from them. They were both good. But I just had to have a chuckle about that.
So did you understand Manzi's Canadian accent?
I think we got through okay. I think we were all right at the end of it. But yeah, I totally agree. I think the more that we can find ways to keep connecting with each other at times when we don't know, especially at times when we don't normally get to connect.
Yes.
It could be in our season. It could be, in some off-season period where we're not going out, like dead periods for college coaches when they really can't do anything off campus, that sort of thing. And yeah, I think I agree, Pete. There's a lot of opportunities that the technology is showing us that, hey, we can try to do this. We just kind of have to figure out how.
And I like this
experiment.
This format. It's pretty cool. With the Zoom breakout sessions and these sort of things. And actually, Sharon Clark was my first coaching clinic ever at Butler in 2004 or 5, I believe. So, and she was fantastic. But I remember that moment when I didn't know anything really, and I'm on the court and she's teaching me how to jump serve, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm just moving around because I played volleyball but never coached it. And I just think, man, how can we get that in person? How can we, or through this electronic means, breakout sessions maybe, and conversations. People like to be fly on the wall with this. You see there's some interaction here. Hopefully people are getting something out of these things. I've watched a couple of these and they've been good. And the AOC guys all had a beer the other night. There were like 4 of them. I caught a little bit of that. That's some fun stuff. The
happy hour Fridays, I think.
Yeah, with the 4 of them, just chatting. Yeah. That's cool stuff. And I as Pete said, the more you have to do this as a teacher online, the more you can come up with creative ideas about how to pull interaction of people who may not want to in certain mediums. And, we're going to have to change the paradigm a little bit about how we learn and how we teach and what we expect of people. I don't even know if we're going to be play volleyball in the fall, with my team. So it's, that's part of these things too is they said people are either they're binging Netflix or they're abusing alcohol during this stuff, And so it's like, what are we doing on the other end of those things to pull us through this stuff? And that lack of connection has really hurt a lot of people, And so when you have things like this, even when you just get on and when people are having drinks with other people and just chatting, we realize how important and how valuable these connections are to all of us. So hopefully we can help.
Apparently we could have had a drinking game going on.
Yeah, well, it's 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock here.
BJ mentioned it with respect to Pete about talking about philosophy. So yeah. I'm sure we could come up with some.
It's good stuff.
Any additional questions come up through Facebook, Brian?
Not really. Let's see. Dan just commenting on our nice hair. So I'm commenting back to him. I think there was one question from a guy from Nigeria. I'm not sure, but he was just asking about what the rules are. I think that some people are, just in general trying to figure out what they can get away with too. We've allowed sort of a lot of things go because I guess on a final note, we don't want this to be just a place where we come to converse, but it is a social network in itself. We can share jokes that only we get. We can share, pictures of these sorts of things, and I think if we lose sight of that, then maybe we have lost the reason why we're still connecting with each other. Yeah. That's those little nuanced things that are important about communication and connection that make people feel valued.
Yeah.
Well, we all have one great thing in common, which is referee jokes.
And even the refs sit here and go, "Hey, man."
Oh yeah, I'm gonna hear from it. I'm gonna hear about it.
You're gonna get
and player stories, of course. We all have player stories.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Good stuff.
We might not be able to share other coach stories because you never know who's paying attention.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Leave that for volley talk.
Well, one day I will write a book.
And
Yeah,
one day I will
probably
pretend
also.
to read it. As I do
By the
many
way,
books.
yeah, that's a long list.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I have to correct myself. It wasn't BJ who talked about the Wung drinking game. It was Manzi. So,
Of course.
Correct attribution required.
So should I start with the short guy jokes?
Dan said, refs can't figure out the tech to even see this. That's funny. All right, that's good. We're all going to hear it. Yeah.
That's right, exactly. All right. Well, while we finish up with laughter and fun after we got so serious in the middle.
Yeah, no, it was great.
I think it's a good way to wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen.
It was a pleasure.
Everybody
Thanks.
who's paying attention on VCT and elsewhere.
Thank you
For those who are
reaching out.
not aware of this series, this is, I think, number 51 that I've done so far, and there's a bunch of VCT members who've been involved. So go to coachingvb.com, and if you look under, wait a minute, I should get this right.
Share your
My
screen
website.
even.
Yeah, I could if I had it up on this screen. But if you go in courses and resources, there's an entry for the coaching conversation recordings. So you can go back and look at all of those.
Very cool.
This weekend, Ruth Nelson is going to join me on Saturday morning in the U.S. for a conversation with a coach from Oman. He's an FIVB instructor, so that should be pretty interesting. And then, not getting very far away from some of the social elements, I'm actually going to be sitting down with two coaches of historically black colleges and universities to talk about coaching in that environment, which should be pretty interesting, especially given the developments on the men's side of the game, where we've seen several of those institutions add men's volleyball or are about to add men's volleyball. So it's been a really influential part of growing the sport and that side of things. So that should be a good conversation as well. And with that, we'll wrap things up. Have a good evening, Mr.
Thank
Brian
you, sir.
in Germany.
Thank you very
Good
much.
rest
It
of
was a
your
pleasure.
day.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
And thanks everybody for checking us out.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate
See ya.
it. Bye.